Hey, KU fans, welcome back to KU Sports Extra here at KUsports.com with Benton Smith. I'm Matt Tate, and no, that is not Allen Fieldhouse behind me. A little technical difficulties last night. I blame him on technology and equipment. I'm not going to blame him on my 42 self,
Well,
42-year-old self.
I think you're pretty handy with a laptop. I would just go ahead and blame the old equipment on
There
the
you go.
laptop. I mean,
There you
that's
go.
just an aged computer more than anything, right?
Aged computer more than an aged sports writer.
Yeah.
I like it. I wasn't even fishing for compliments there or even like a concession, but I appreciate you coming through for me. Speaking of coming through, KU wins it 78-66 in a game that I thought was really cool because David McCormick after the game called it non-negotiable. What do you think he meant by that? I mean, Dave's a smart dude. He always uses these kind of words and
Yeah.
big phrases and big words, and he called it non-negotiable.
I enjoyed that. I mean, I feel like it's kind of a cooler way to say a must-win game,
Right,
right?
right.
I mean, just like this, we don't have time for this nonsense anymore. We have to win this game, and that's to his credit. I mean, he really turned it around after that rough start he had. Because it seemed like right at halftime, you're like, is KU actually going to win this game? Because I mean, it seemed like kind of a same old that we've seen the past 6 weeks or whatever it's been. But McCormick, unbelievable in the second half. I mean, on
Yeah,
both ends of the court.
yeah. Well, you said it. I mean, the nonsense was exactly what it was. I mean, he played so poorly in the first half, and I think it's important to point out that the energy continues to be good even when he plays poorly. I mean, he's trying, he's working, he's on the glass.
Mm.
He's just not executing and not finishing. And then as if he was touched with some kind of magic wand in the locker room at halftime, he comes out and looks like a totally different player in the second half. I asked him about that too. You know, what flips, what switch did you find? And I think it just comes down to taking his time and recognizing, listen, I've got a huge size advantage. I got to use this to my advantage instead of bailing them out by playing too fast or too sped up or whatever it is. So I don't know how they get that going earlier. I don't know how they can avoid it taking a half or longer for him to figure that out. Obviously, they don't know it either, or they'd be doing it. But I'm sure it's something they continue to work on. But boy, when he got going, he looked amazing. I mean, that spurt to open the second half where he got, I think, 9 points and he dished an assist to Ochai on the back cut. I mean, that put KU up 9 in a game like that. That seemed like a massive lead, and it ended up being exactly the cushion KU needed to kind of just keep Oklahoma State at arm's length the rest of the game. What else stood out to you about these guys? Obviously, McCormick was terrific in the second half, but it wasn't just him, and I think some of his teammates definitely kind of fed off of his energy and his execution and the way he was playing like a polished veteran quality player. It seemed like that rubbed off on people.
Yeah, I mean, really, he wasn't the only one who needed to have an improved second half, and Christian Brown eventually found it in the second half too, and Jalen Wilson, he had some bad turnovers, but he did kind of show some assertiveness offensively and hit the glass and that type of thing. So, I mean, the whole first half was basically just Marcus Garrett, kind of exposing the holes in the defense and going inside to get baskets, and that was like the entire offense. And I mean, that's obviously not what KU wants, but I'm sure they're happy that Garrett found those openings because that was it. Other than Ochai hitting a couple threes, there was nothing happening. And so the guys who needed to recover did a good job in the second half of kind of finding it and making this win possible. Because I mean, what was that Oklahoma game at KU? Was that like a month ago at this point? Like the last time
January 9th, right?
You're right. The last time they beat a legit team, so they needed to beat another legit team.
Yeah, very good point. I thought it was cool because, like you said, Christian Brown, Jalen Wilson, both had double-doubles, both had great games as it ended up, even though they had moments that weren't great. But do you get the feeling that Jalen Wilson's close? I mean, I've been impressed by his ability to continue to just keep playing and playing hard. And he's not perfect, but he does go to the glass. He does compete. He does turn it over, and he has still continued to miss shots. But these last two games, his offense, I think, has looked like it's just there. I mean, he's, what was he last night? He was still 4 for 12, and he missed all 3 threes he took. So he can still shoot it better than he's shooting it. But to me, it looks like something that the guy is just a game or two away from finally knocking through that ceiling again and maybe getting his jumper going. And then if that happens, as we saw in December and obviously November as well, I mean, this team is a different team when he can just step back and knock down shots. So are you with me? Do you feel like he's that close? I mean, these last 2 games I think are the closest thing to consistent we've seen, and it just looks like he's on the cusp.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, like the biggest thing that has changed, I think maybe that K-State game was the first time where he really started asserting himself again. Because I mean, look, I think I actually have it in front of me. He was 3 for 13 at K-State. Obviously not ideal, missing 10 shots, but 13 attempts. West Virginia, 6 for 13. And then against Oklahoma State, he's 4 for 12. So, I mean, the shots aren't falling right now, but I think you're right that he's becoming more assertive again. And, I mean, if he can just kind of get over this hump, I really do think that he could play really well down the stretch because I like his approach. Just he's not scoring the ball right now and has had some suspect turnovers at times.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it looks to me like every time he takes a jumper, at least from outside, he hit a couple of mid-range shots last night that looked really easy. But right now when he takes a 3-point shot, you can almost tell as he's going up, let alone before he releases it. You can almost tell it's not going in. And I'm sure that's a confidence thing and maybe just, him not fully setting himself and taking the shots he wants to take, but feeling like I got to shoot this. And so, again, it's just a fine line, just right on the cusp of maybe a little bit more of a tweak here or a tweak there, and he could become that scorer again. Christian Brown's obviously trending in the right direction. Still not perfect. None of these guys are right now, but Brown, after getting on the floor at West Virginia and diving for every loose ball he could find last night, he played with that same kind of mentality. I mean, the steal where he just flat out ripped the ball away from the guy going to the basket. I mean, that was like Von Miller against Cam Newton in the Super Bowl. I mean, he just decided that was his ball and he was going to take it from him and the guy could do nothing about it. So those types of things are, I think, what Christian Brown is known for. And the more he can do those with regularity, the more that's going to help this team. So they're still a ways off from where they want to be, but you can go down the line. And when you consider that Ochai Abaji's been pretty steady and consistent most of this season, you can go down the line, I think, especially with that starting 5 and look and see, all right, he's close. All right, Jalen's shot's close. All right, McCormick's got it figured out. He's been pretty good the last 10 games, even with some rough moments. And Marcus Garrett's even more comfortable offensively now. So it continues to be with this team. They've just got to figure out a way to put all of that together and do it for 40 minutes. If they do, I think they still believe they can play with anybody. And I think there's evidence from the past that may be true. But playing with anybody for 5 or 10 minutes is not going to be enough. They've got to figure out a way to do it for an entire game. So they got a chance to get right here in these next couple of games. I know we've said that for the last month. I mean, it's been all about getting right, and they haven't quite got there. But 2 with Iowa State this week, Thursday and Saturday, and then a game at K-State next Tuesday. I mean, no guarantees in any of them, of course, but you'd like to think that if they could figure out a way to get through all 3 of those with wins, that's 4 in a row. That probably puts them back in the top 25. That probably puts them feeling good and confident heading into that final stretch. I mean, Self said it last night how important these 2 Iowa State games are. What do you call them? The biggest games of their season? I mean –
yeah, he might have said that exactly. Yeah. I mean, I was kind of surprised about how much of an emphasis he put on it. But I think it's kind of the situation where, you really are running out of time.
Yep.
And if you don't, hit another level here in the next week or so, I mean, you're just never going to hit it. So, I mean, hit it now when when you got some, more winnable games. These are Iowa State has struggled this year. I know they're being more competitive lately. So,
definitely.
It's not going to be just a layup line for KU when they play Iowa State in these back-to-back games. But, K-State is obviously, we've seen how bad they've been this year. So that's 3 games where you can really maybe turn a corner even just by, handling your business and maybe gaining some more confidence.
Yeah, just piling up wins for this team, which hasn't happened since December. That would feel good. That would feel different. I think it would give them a chance to get their swagger back, even if they're not pretty wins or perfect wins. I mean, just 4 in a row sounds unheard of right now. So I'm fascinated. I know we talked about this last night, but I'm fascinated by the back-to-backs against Iowa State. I mean, Thursday you play them at home, then you travel Friday probably to go up to Ames, and then you play them again Saturday afternoon. I mean, like that's I love it. I can't wait. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't care what's going to happen. I think that's really cool to watch two teams have to adjust to facing each other once and then do it again 2 days later. So we'll see. It especially up there, it won't be easy just because it's a road game. But I think KU, if they want to be the team they want to be, or if they're going to be the team they want to be, they have no excuses for these next 3 games. They're absolutely winnable, and they're going to be favored. I mean, you want to talk about non-negotiable, right? There they are. I mean, you can't lose any of those 3 and still sell people on the fact that you're a good team and that you're going to have a chance to make a run, because it just, it certainly could happen after that, but nobody's going to believe it will. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens. Any final thoughts from the win over Oklahoma State, which, again, a good team, a ranked team, no shame in that victory. KU needed it big time.
No, they did. Kind of random, but as you were mentioning the stretch coming up, I was trying to remember, when do they play Baylor again? And that's potentially the regular season finale, right? And then I was like, oh, is Baylor going to be playing basketball again by then? Because what is going on with that team? I mean, has anyone handled this worse this year? I feel like every other week they've got another, string of postponements.
Right. No, that's a good question. And I mean, it's a fine line, right? There's part of me that thinks, well, maybe KU would benefit from not playing that game. But I'm sure if you ask Self and you have to ask these players, they want to play that game, right? So I don't know. I mean, that's a tough one, because if you build some momentum and you win these next few and you get 4 in a row, and I mean, look, Texas Tech's a team you already beat and you get them at home. They're really good, but that doesn't make that game not winnable. Let's say you get that one 5 in a row. I mean, that, you're feeling pretty good about yourselves. Texas and Baylor after that, both tough games, but is it possible that just avoiding that game and avoiding the potential for, taking one on the chin heading into the postseason, maybe that is a good thing. That's a ways away though. That's still 3 weeks out. So or not quite, I guess, but pretty close. So I don't know. I'm sure they'll play it by then, but that's why we've got the back-to-back, right? Because of the COVID reschedule factor.
Mm-hmm.
So who knows, man? I mean, I was looking at it last night. KU's 13-7 overall. That's 20 games, right? It feels like they've played 9. I mean, I think it's probably because I haven't been going on the road and we haven't been at road games. And so that makes it feel like less. And it also has just been such a weird season and a weird year in the world. So it doesn't quite feel like they're 20 games into the season. And maybe it's also because they're playing like they're not 20 games into the season. They're still trying to figure things out, still looking like they have a little bit of rust at times and lacking consistency. So just a weird situation all the way around, but it's go time now. I mean, it is absolutely time for them to start putting all those things. We saw bits and pieces of all of it last night against Oklahoma State. Every one of those 5 starters, they could still get more from the bench. But look, if your starting 5 can play 35 minutes and play at the level you want them to play, your bench, it doesn't matter as much. I mean, you need it, but it's just not – it's not like you're going to look at your bench and say, oh, we're not getting what we need. I mean, they just have to be serviceable, and they are. Lightfoot can be that guy. Inaruna can be that guy. Bryce Thompson may be back. They're still planning on that. So it'll be interesting to see how it all shakes out. I asked you if you had final thoughts. You gave me a thought. Do you have any final thoughts?
I think we should end it there.
I like
before we get farther off track.
I like that answer. For Ben Smith, I'm Matt Tate. Thanks for checking out KU Sports Extra. KU wins it 78-66 over Oklahoma State to move to 13-7 overall and 7-5 in Big 12 play. And Bill Self still talking about finishing second in this conference. It's in front of them. They just got to go do it. Crazy. We'll talk to you guys again next time.